And I thought it's a terrible thing for you to work 10 or 20 or 30 years to achieve a particular level of income and financial well-being when you could do it in 3 to 5 years.
When I was young, I had small goals as a teenager, and then my goals got bigger at some point. At some point, I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I wanted to come to grips with a challenge back then. It was a highly complex challenge. I was very eager to go to the Olympics.
And I struggled for years. I finally became successful because I read, I practiced, I wrote down my goals. I started earlier, I worked harder, I stayed later, and I loved the feeling of having more money.
You need clarity about things that you do and the things that you don't do. And for that, you need to draw a map. You need a good goal breakdown, and you need to adapt it because you're navigating a complex world.
Hi, I'm Greg Voisen, the host of Inside Personal Growth, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce to you one of our sponsors today, Thais Gibson from the Personal Development School. Now, your personal attachment style is one of the most powerful forces in your life. It shapes your relationship, your self-worth, and your beliefs. What if you had the power to become securely attached? You'd be able to build stronger connections and heal any relationship. Attachment expert Thais Gibson from the Personal Development School has pioneered a transformative, practical approach that will change your relationships forever. The first step, discovering your own attachment style. The free attachment style quiz at the Personal Development School, you can take it in less than 5 minutes, and you'll get a personalized report with insights about your patterns, your beliefs, and the next steps to make real change. Don't miss out. Check the show notes below for the link and start your journey today.
Welcome back to Inside Personal Growth. This is Greg Voisen, the host of Inside Personal Growth. And for all of my listeners, you are in for a special treat today. Brian Tracy in the lower left-hand corner has done his third edition of his book, Goals. And he was telling me at coffee, because he and I live pretty close to one another, that he spent a ton of time editing this. This is the world's best-selling book with over 1 million copies sold. It's how to get everything you want faster than you ever thought possible. Definitely we'll have links to Amazon to go get a copy of that. In the upper left-hand corner of this screen is a gentleman we've collaborated with, which I've known for many, many years, Marcus Baur. And Marcus owns a software, and probably one of the only visual-based softwares for setting goals, which is really easy to use. And he's going to tell you about how this collaboration is, but importantly, too, he's going to tell you about a special feature, AI, which is now into that software, which will allow you to help you kickstart your goals. So I'm going to start off with Brian. Brian is one of the world's most respected authorities on personal and professional growth and success. He's an acclaimed speaker, author, entrepreneur. He's inspired millions of individuals and organizations to achieve their full potential. He's authored, what'd you say, 92 books, Brian?
94.
94 books, including international bestseller, Eat That Frog, The Psychology of Achievement, which have been translated into dozens of languages, including the language they were speaking, which I speak a little bit of, German. We actually have Marcus joining us from Germany. He also has decades of experience in business strategy, leadership, personal development. He's helped people unlock creativity and improve their lives, and more importantly, around goals. I want to tell people a little bit about Marcus. Now, Marcus and I met over 12 years ago. He's a visionary co-founder of a company called Goalscape. That's www.goalscape.com. It's a revolutionary software platform that simplifies, and I want to underline that, simplifies goal setting and achievements for individuals, teams, and organizations. He's got a background as a former Olympic sailor. He understands the power of focus, perseverance, strategic planning, and he's channeled these experiences into the Goalscape software. It's a visual goal management tool that empowers users to clarify their priorities, track their progress, and achieve their most ambitious objectives. Well, gentlemen, welcome to Inside Personal Growth. And Brian, we will start with you because you're the one that basically is the catalyst for us coming together today, because this new book was just released, and I want to let people know that it was just released. And we actually want you to go out and get a copy, but we also want you to go to goalscape.com to get a copy of the software as well. There's a free trial that you can try it and use it along with this book. Brian, your book goals, this isn't the first one. This is the third one now. And you went back to Barrett Kohler and you put a lot of work into this. And it always interests me when an author has not only authored it once, twice, three times. It's not always about selling more books. It's about continuing to polish the stone. And you have polished the stone in this third edition, in my estimation, probably better than anything when I started reaching it. What are some of the differences compared to the previous versions of the book? And what inspired you to take this back on again after 92 books?
Barrett Kohler is a wonderful publisher, and what they discovered is that it's easier to sell more of a successful book when it's reissued with new material than it is to sell a brand new book. So that was one of the reasons why we've written goals, but also I've been writing and practicing and using the goal achieving tools over the years, and I've learned more and more and more. When I was 21, I read Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. And Think and Grow Rich makes the very clear point, the starting point of all success is desire and a clear, major, definite purpose or one big goal. And he spent 20 years interviewing 500 of the richest men and women, mostly men, in America to find out how they got from nothing. And everyone starts at the bottom to where they were. And the number one factor was goal setting, is they decided very clearly where they are and where they wanted to go. They made a plan to do it, and they worked on the plan every day. And they accomplished more in a few years than many people accomplish in an entire lifetime. One of my great subjects was always on time management. And I thought it's a terrible thing for you to work 10 or 20 or 30 years to achieve a particular level of income and financial well-being when you could do it in 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a seminar, big seminar in Washington, D.C. last year, and a man came out of the crowd, 2,500 people, and he said, "You're Brian Tracy?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "You changed my life. You made me rich." And I've heard that now about 1,000 times. I've heard it from all over the world. I've heard it in every language. You changed my life. You made me rich. What was it? They always say it was the gold. It was the goals. I had no idea how important goals were. And Marcus has had the same experience, is when they learn about the importance of goals and how this organizing principle is so powerful. You can achieve more in 5 to 7 years than you might achieve in 50 or 70 years. So that's why we're excited about the subject.
Oh, it's really an exciting subject. Now I want to bounce over to Marcus, and then we'll come back to you, Brian, because you talked with me at coffee about the superconscious mind, and I really think this is an important area. But Marcus, how does the Goalscape software complement the principles outlined in Brian's book? And what unique value does it bring to goal setting and goal achievement as you see it? Because, you've studied Brian's new book, you had the pre release copies, you got an opportunity to create a template and actually put the template into the software. So tell us how the software complements the book.
Well, Brian's book is really a gift to the world. What he has summarized in goals is the if you like, actually the software on how you achieve goals, what attitudes you need to bring to the game, what uh, practices you should use, what sequence you should follow. And when I was young, I had small goals as a teenager, and then my goals got bigger at some point. At some point, I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I wanted to come to grips with a challenge back then. It was a highly complex challenge. I was very eager to go to the Olympics, and I needed a map to get there. And just writing down lists didn't do it for me, because I thought, well, one super important aspect that Brian also talks about is prioritizing. And I thought, I want to see the priorities of all the things I need to do at a glance. And so I thought, well, I put my biggest goal in the center of the map, and then I draw the sub goals around it. And depending on how big the slices of the donut around it are, the more important the goals actually are. And then I broke these goals down further. And breaking down goals is also something that Brian talks about. You must break down your big goals into smaller goals to make them manageable. And I simply wanted to have a map to do that. And mind maps didn't quite do it because they blew out in all directions. And the problem with any goal we only have 24 hours.
Finite amount of time.
Yeah, that's why I had it all the time. Whilst our mind should be free and we should, dream big, we still have 24 hours. Everybody has 24 hours every day. So what do you make of it? And that means you have to prioritize really carefully. And Goalscape draws a super simple map where you put your big goal at the center, and then you break it down, and then you prioritize, and you can break it down further, and then you can prioritize on that level as well. And then you can make progress. And that again reflects into the map. You mark your progress through shading that goes from the outside in towards the big central goal. And when you do that, you quickly see where your white spots are. They all have high priority, but low development. And that's where you want to focus on. So it's just a method, if you like, to keep the overview and to keep clarity in your big challenges.
And I think on our next question, Marcus, I would like for you, if you could, to maybe share the screen. But the most important thing is, and you might want to actually share the template you made for Brian, but I do want to ask Brian this question, because we're talking about the structural part of achieving goals. There's a huge mental component around achieving goals, with Brian and I had coffee around, and that's this superconscious mind that he discusses in the book. And so in this case, Brian, can you explain the role of achieving like an ambitious goal, like going to the Olympics, and how readers can tap into this power of the superconscious mind? Because it's got to be addressed along with the definiteness of purpose. Because, when you go back to Napoleon Hill, and I have interviewed all the people at the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Don Green and all of them. They'll always talk about the definiteness of purpose. So I think if you could address both superconscious mind and definite of purchase, we'll then flip back to Marcus and let him show your template from your book.
Okay, well, there are a series of laws that have been discovered. My favorite law, actually my second favorite, is the law of cause and effect, which was first mentioned by Aristotle. And Aristotle was considered the greatest philosopher of all time. That all philosophy for 2,000 years was merely a commentary on Aristotle. And one of the things he said is that there's a reason for everything. And if you want to achieve a particular goal, the starting point is for you to decide what goal it is that you want to achieve. Most people are unclear. They have vague goals. They have general goals. They want to be rich. I have people come up to me and say, well, I decided I want to be a billionaire in 1 year. And I say, well, why don't you try to be a thousandaire in 1 year? And so people are unclear. And as a result, it's like driving through the fog or driving through a snowstorm, is they're never clear about where they are, whether they're closer or further away. So clarity comes from writing it down. Now, I used to have a coaching program where I would take about 30 people, all business owners, all with an income of more than $100,000. up to 500,000 and more. And I would say to them, come to me 4 times a year for a full day and work in a group. And I guarantee that you will double your income and double your time off. And I charged them $5,000 for this year. And they would say, well, that's a lot of money. I said, well, if you don't double your income and double your time off, my double guarantee, then there's no charge. I'll give you your money back. And I've put more than 1,000 entrepreneurs and business owners through my program over 7 years, and not one person ever asked for a refund. Every one of them doubled and tripled their income, not in a year, but in sometimes a week. They couldn't believe it. They were just astonished at what happened. And I put them through a very simple exercise. I would hand out a spiral notebook, and I'd say, this is your new best friend. What you're going to do now is you're going to write out your major goals every single morning for a month. And then you're going to do it for the rest of your life, but just for a month. And my promise is that you'll double your income and double your time off. And they all did. And what I did is I gave them a very simple exercise, which I'm going to pass on to you. Write down 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next year or so. You can have longer term goals if you like, but write down 10 goals that are achievable and that you can see, rather than 50-year goals and so on. Number 2, look over your 50 goals and say, if you could achieve any one goal on this list within 24 hours, which one goal would have the greatest positive impact on your life? And put a circle around that goal. Then take a new sheet of paper and write down 20 things that you could do to achieve that goal, and then take action on at least one thing. And so what I just described to you will transform your life. It will be the same thing. You changed my life. You made me rich. There's something phenomenal about it, which goes a leap ahead to the power of the superconscious mind. And Freud talked about the id, the
It and the I.
the and it, and then the super id. And this was the third mind, the conscious mind, the subconscious, and the superconscious mind has been talked about throughout all of history. And what it says is that when you're absolutely clear about a goal that you want to achieve and you write it down, it's very important that you write it down in the present tense, is what happens is the entire universe goes to work to bring you your goal, and usually in ways that go completely different from what you expected. And there's all kinds of research and studies that shows this, but you have to have the goal where you want to end up at the end of the day. And so what I tell my students, I say, your goal is to become a millionaire within a reasonable period of time. So say that down as a goal, to be a millionaire. All right, and then here's some of the things that you can do. First of all, is to have it as a written goal, and then some of the things that you can do every day that move you towards your goal and attract your goal toward you. The superconscious power that each person has is absolutely phenomenal. It's your goal achieving mechanism will start to work for you the instant that you set it as a goal, and you'll almost always achieve your goal in a way different from what you expected. Almost always, they have found is that people start off moving toward their goal and they hit a roadblock, but then another door opens and they start off down the other door and they hit another roadblock, and they keep hitting roadblocks, and then bang, there they are at their goal in a way completely different from what they had expected. And Marcus has found this out the same way. The most important thing is to start moving forward with clarity about what it is you.
And Brian, I'll add to that, because around definiteness of purpose, there are no accidents. Everything is on purpose. And so you have to be purposeful and set your intentions. And like you said, it may not happen exactly as you wrote it down, but ultimately you will get there and you will achieve the goal, provided you've put this into the subconscious and you've planted it through whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it affirmations, fine. If you want to call it setting intentions, fine. You can call it whatever you want. Now, Marcus, I have a question for you, because visualization is a key aspect of what we've just talked about. And it's about goals and Goalscape. And your software is all about visualization. It couldn't be if you weren't there. Could you show a screenshot of Brian's template from his book that you've created and why this visualization is so impactful and how Goalscape integrates this concept into its design?
Yeah, let's actually take an example that's a bit more higher level, where we look at, what if you want to manage your life, and we use the classic example of the wheel of life. Is my screen sharing now?
It is now.
I think now it is. So this would be a typical wheel of life, and in a minute I'll show the template that we've created as an introduction to Brian's book. Which then would allow you to manage something like this better. Let's assume someone has the goal of having a balanced life with many more moments of joy than of worry. Well, that's just the goal. Can you measure it? Maybe you can. Maybe you say, I want to have 80%, at least 80% joy and less than 20% worry. Could be a goal. Not sure if it's the right one, but let's assume that's in the center. Then you break it down into your health, your living environment, your career and your job, your relationship, personal growth, money, leisure, and free time. And maybe to others, maybe you make it a little bit more simple. These breakdowns exists with 4, 8, 10, or 12 elements. You can do it the way you like. Let's say someone is in the situation where he says, well, all these things are going to get better if I have more money. Okay, it's gonna make everything else better. So I focus on this in a large part, and that's fine. That could work out well. And what we see immediately, he's done his assessment. He looked at the current state of his health. It's not optimal, but you see the shading. It's sort of 50% filled in. His diet is good, but sleep is bad. Exercise, not much of that. Well, maybe some more exercise will make the sleep better. So it's that kind of thinking. You see the structure and you see the progress and you see the white space. And you can also see, what if you go out of whack? What if you only go for the money? Well, you won't have much of a family life, right? Is that a balanced life? Definitely not. So you want to strike a balance. That's what it's about. Now let's look at a strategy example. And that's really what Brian's book is about. It's a strategy and practice and habits and wisdom on how to achieve goals. And we just extracted a couple of elements that we thought were the most important ones for an introduction. This is not a replacement to reading the book. In no way. You have to read the book, and I recommend to anybody to read the book and then go back to the beginning and read the summaries at the end of every chapter, which are awesome. And it's such a good way to learn, Brian. You did this amazingly. So you can read the whole thing, you gain some depth, but then you want to make sure you remember what was in there. And the things that we found most important, we put on the first level, is that you need to clarify your beliefs and your values. And that breaks down into a bunch of smaller goals that you want to achieve. What are the values? Analyze your beliefs. I think when we talk about goals and the superconscious, setting a goal is the opposite of a limiting belief. It's the belief that something is possible, that you can push the boundaries. And someone who starts questioning that belief and starts setting goals, he's feeding the superconscious so that he can achieve something that he couldn't with a limiting belief. So this is an important chapter. And then, how do you set your key goals? The next one here is step 2, prioritize and act. Steps 3, track progress and do frequent reviews. Then, because you hit those closed doors, that's inevitable. Failure is inevitable on the way, and the life throws you curveballs all the time. You need to update, adapt, and repeat. And we put in a little conclusion. So that's just a simple template to get started. And we recommend to people to go through these and ensure that they understood the basics.
And I think to let the listeners know, Marcus, if you sign up for your 14-day free trial, you can get this template. You can go get Brian's book. We'll put a link in there to Amazon for everybody to go actually get the book.
You must get the book.
The book has to be done with the software, and then you can read it, and then you can test this out, and if you like it, then you can buy it. Now, Brian, I want to flip the thing just in deference to the listeners and the viewers on YouTube. The Eat the Frog book was a really big book for you. It sold millions of copies also. And it's a principle you've emphasized in your work. And this goes back to what Marcus was just talking about. How does prioritizing tasks align with effective goal setting as outlined in the book? And the other thing I want to add to that, and it's a two-part question, Brian, is people write goals. And frequently what happens is they get all excited at the beginning of the year or the end of the year because we're approaching it now, and they write all their goals and they're not self-disciplined enough. How would both of you address the self-discipline to actually not only write the goals, but then to continually work on the goals throughout the rest of the year? Because what is the old saying about the health goals people say? They say, yeah, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to lose 20 pounds, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then by February, that's all been blown apart. They're not doing any of it. Okay. So tell us the secrets about sticking with it.
Well, there's a very interesting piece of writing done by a psychologist in the last century, and it was called positive addiction. And what they found is that every time you do anything, you get a flush of dopamines, endorphins, depressing drugs, and so on. Everything you do, you get a rush. And when you do something positive, when you set a goal and take one step toward it, you get a feeling of happiness and health. You develop what is called a positive addiction, and you want to do it again and again. That's why when people write down their goals and then make a list of things they can do to achieve it, and then start on number one, they feel happy. And as Aristotle said, that desire for happiness is the primary driving force in human life. Everything that people do is to be happier than they were before. And so therefore, when you write down your goals and you take a step toward it, you release these endorphins and dopamines and you feel happy. And soon you develop a positive addiction. You get up in the morning, for example, when you work out physically, you exercise physically, you release endorphins and you have a feeling of well-being and happiness. You have energy, you're brighter, you're smarter, your sense of humor is better, your personality is better. So every time you do something that's good for you, you get a payoff, and the payoff is immediate. So what do successful people do? Is they addict themselves to positive behaviors. And one of the most positive behaviors is the step-by-step motion toward the achievement of something that's important to you. That's why when you make a plan and you make a list and you start on the most important things, what you do is you get a rush and you feel happy and you become addicted to success. That's why you see people who start with nothing and become millionaires and multimillionaires and billionaires. And they're happy most of the time. They're happy because they're getting this feeling of goodness and accomplishment. And that's one of the reasons why Marcus and I and you are so excited about goals, because when we work on our goals and we feel ourselves moving toward our goals, we feel happy. And that's really the ultimate aim of human life. Let me give you one quick example. Everybody wants to be happily married. And if we are happily married, which I am, then it's a wonderful thing. I came across one of my goal lists that was done 25, 30 years ago, and it was meet and marry the woman of my dreams. And I did. Now, what I learned somewhere along the way was that if you want to meet the perfect person, sit down and write the perfect person for me would be, and write down every single quality of the perfect person for you. Now, this is especially important when you're younger, but at any time in life, if you or do not have a great relationship, sit down and design it. Say, this would be the perfect person. And you know what happens? Is that perfect person walks into your life.
Right, you're gonna put those matchmaking applications out of business. Because the reality is, if you also set that in your subconscious, you'll find that person exactly where you need to find them. But
Yep.
Marcus, to you, Marcus, flipping it back, look, you became an Olympic athlete. That's a big goal. There's a lot of people out here listening today that have never been an Olympic athlete. They didn't train to do that. Explain to us again. This is flipping the question back to you. Task alignment to get effective goals, and how do you keep yourself self-disciplined to actually get to go do something like the Olympics?
Well, I think in general terms, first, that research has shown that there is a thing called the middle slump. People are really motivated when they set themselves a goal, like that's the New Year's thing. I'm going to eat, I'm going to improve my diet. I'm going to go and exercise. They're really excited in the beginning, and then, but if the end of the goal is far away, when will I have lost the 10 kilos? When do I look like, the way I want to look? That's a long way away. And then the motivation fades. And that's called the middle slump. And you can hack the middle slump by breaking down your goal. And that's something you must do. And by that, you train your motivation, inner motivation, and a reward system. And some people have learned this more as young children than others, but you can train it at any time in your life. You just have to do it. You have to break down your goals. So in the example of fitness, you have to decide, I'm going to go 3 times a week. And then when I go there, I'm going to do these 10 exercises. And for each exercise, I'm going to do 3 sets. And I'm going to write down that I'm going to do 10 repetitions. And then next time I do 12. That's the system. That's the system. And you can have these systems in anything in life. When you do the dishes, it's a very annoying task, but you can turn it into a joy by saying, I'm going to sort this first here. I'm going to prepare this. I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to do that. You apply a system.
It becomes a meditation when you do dishes.
It done. I love it by now. I was listening to podcasts and I love doing the dishes in the morning. And I once heard Jeff Bezos say that he likes puttering in the morning. He calls it puttering. He does stuff in the kitchen, and it is a kind of meditation. And this way you can turn almost anything into a joy because you break down your goals, and then every time you achieve one of those small goals, you get an endorphin reward, and that's the key.
That is the key, is the endorphin and the oxytocins and the chemicals that are released. You get into flow. And that
Yeah.
brings me to this because, Brian, I'm skipping around here with the questions, but you gentlemen know this. In the book, you discuss leveraging mentors and coaches. And when you and I went to coffee, I could say that you're definitely somebody who's a mentor to me and has been a coach. And so thank you for all the years, whether it's been in person or over video or listening to audio cassette tapes, which I told you I had a bunch of, but I can't play anymore. But the point is that I've had plenty of mentors that I've never met. And I hope people out here listening today can strike a chord with this podcast to have 2 more mentors to help them set goals. If you would, Brian, and we'll flip this to you too, Marcus, who have been some of those mentors which have influenced you, Brian? And 2, why do you believe it's important that people have these coaches like you, like Marcus, like the software? And I'll use the software as a coach because it can be a coach, to improve not only our goals, but our relationships, our one's ability to achieve these goals effectively. Why is that so important?
Well, a simple answer is that there are people out there who you can learn from, and those people are speakers, they are writers, they're authors, they're people that you may never get to physically. But what I found, and Marcus has found, and you have found, is that as Les Brown says, you got to be hungry. You got to be hungry. You have to be ambitious. You have to ambition. You have to reach out. You have to struggle. You have to put some things aside, and you have to go to the seminars in the evenings, and you have to take the time and read the books and take the notes and transcribe the notes into your bigger book and then review it over and over again. It depends upon how badly you want it. If you really want it badly enough, then you will find a way to do it. We will do more things of higher value and fewer things of lower value. So that's, I think, the critical thing for you and I and Marcus and most of our friends and followers is they're hungry. They want to be successful. They want to have more and be more and do more.
And they're just simply not willing to settle. And
Can
many,
you talk about the power of discomfort? I mean, I think when people get comfortable, Brian, what frequently happens is this process starts to wane because hey, I've got the money, I've got the house. What goals do I have? And I think there's so much more people can do to give to the world, to make this place a better place. I know that Marcus worked for a long time on with the UN goals, the United Nations, and he made a whole goalscape around that. And I think once you get to a certain levels of achievement, I always looked as how am I going to give back? And where does this discomfort with where I sit and my legacy sit with both you and Marcus? Kind of an off the wall question, but it's important.
Well, I'm going to let Marcus answer this as well. But when I came from a poor background, as most of us do, and I struggled for years, and I finally became successful because I read, I practiced, I wrote down my goals. I started earlier, I worked harder, I stayed later, and I loved the feeling of having more money. And then I began to teach other people what I had done, and they achieved more money, more goals, because money really equals freedom. If you have enough money, you're free to do more things that are important to you and to your members of your family. So what we've done is we say, all right, money basically covers a lot of things, and if you have enough money, you could do all kinds of things. And so I've raised my children to think in terms of doing something and doing it really well and getting paid well for it. Let me to give you an example about goal setting. Many years ago, I remember I was reading Forbes magazine, and in Forbes magazine, it had the "What does it take to be rich?" was an article, and what it said was that $1 million is nice to have, but to be officially rich, in quotation marks, you need $10 million. To be super rich, you need $30 million. Well, at that point, I didn't have 1 million, but I thought 30 million, no, 10 million to be rich. So they set that as a goal, and I just put it in the back of my mind and went on with the rest of my life. And without even realizing, and this is what happened, within a few years, I had $10 million. And what I found is that most people become rich accidentally, unaware that they're becoming wealthy. What they do is they set the goal into the back of their mind and they just go on with their life. And you start to attract into your life opportunities and people and chance encounters and books and articles that drive you faster towards your goals and drive your goals faster toward you. But the first of all, you have to decide. So I take to my audiences now, your first goal is to become a millionaire. Write it down that I am a millionaire by such and such a date. If you're starting off broke, the answer is it takes 7 years. 7 years from the time you started with nothing to the time that you have $1 million net worth. Some will do it faster, some will do it slower. Once you have 1 million, I tell people the first million is very hard because you have to become a completely different person to earn and hold on to $1 million. But the second million is inevitable because now you are a person who knows how to earn $1 million. And if you lose it all, you'll make it all back again very quickly because you are a millionaire on the inside, which is what Marcus teaches, what you teach, what I have found. Once you become a millionaire on the inside, then becoming 2 million, 3 million, 4 million is inevitable because you are the kind of person who earns and keeps that kind of money. And when you say that to people, that time people come up to me in crowds and say, "You changed my life. You made me rich. You changed my life. You made me rich." Because once I realized what you said, then I decided that by gum, I'm going to be a millionaire. And within a few years, I was. And then a second millionaire. And so on. It's amazing.
I concur with you. I would say, and I just want to echo this, that you can create anything you want in your life. Now, on the other hand, Marcus just made a statement and used the Goalscape to show that if someone focused so much on money, that the other things in their life were going to this. Marcus and I have had a lot of philosophical conversations around happiness, goal setting, achievement of money, and how the software and your book could be used. I think number one, and Marcus, I'm going to throw this question back to you. So, from a philosophical standpoint and as a tool, both. How do you believe that Goalscape and Brian's book, Goals, can help anybody? Because, when we look at generational differences, Brian's a little bit older than me. I'm a little older than you. You're a little younger than me. And we've seen our kids behind us say, I'm not going to do this like dad did. He worked way too hard. He was never home. I never saw him. I wish that he had been there. And my kids have said that at times, right? I worked really hard. I was an MDRT, sold tons of insurance. I've been in a lot of different businesses, and it really did take up a lot of my time. This is a big question for both of you gentlemen, but I think one that's on our listeners' minds. We're in different times now. We're in times of a lot of uncertainty and challenges, and people are looking for answers. So, Marcus, to you, how do you think this software could help people set, achieve goals, help themselves be better balanced? Like you said, the word you used was balanced, and happier, because Brian said it. People are looking for happiness.
Well,
sometimes you want to strike a balance and sometimes you don't want to strike a balance. And it's important. There's different phases in life. I want to also answer your question about mentorship. I think anybody who frees you from a limiting belief is a great mentor, because it's the limiting beliefs that prevent us from achieving our goals. Setting an ambitious goals widens the scope of what we can do. And then from there on, and especially today, our world has gotten more complex. That means more opportunity, but it also means more confusion, more challenges. And if you want to achieve a goal, then you need clarity. You need clarity about things that you do and the things that you don't do. And for that, you need to draw a map. You need a good goal breakdown, and you need to adapt it because you're navigating a complex world. But rest assured, you can only achieve the goal that you set for yourself. And that easily limits you as well. I mean, I give you a personal example. I had the goal of competing at the Olympics, and I did. But I didn't win the Olympics because that was not my goal. I paid it lip service here and there, but it was not. I didn't. You published your book 3 years too late, 3 years after the Sydney Olympics, Brian, and you talked about it back then. And I wanted to compete. Actually wanted to be one of the best sailors in the world, but that doesn't mean winning. Winning is a different thing. And so I didn't. I programmed myself and I set myself the goal of competing in the Olympics, and I did. So whatever you set yourself as a goal is also going to draw a boundary that you might not crack. So I think this has not changed for young people either. It's still today, people want to find something that they excel at. You can't do that at everything. It could be a very small thing. It's very different for different people, what makes them click, but it's it's a gift in life. If for some time you try really, really hard at something to become really, really good, you don't have to do that in all areas of life, because at some point you got to come back and strike a balance, because a healthy life in the long run is a balanced life.
Balanced life.
Sometimes Brian, I think you talk a lot about the cracking into the top 10% of a craft. That if you manage to do that, you're in a very special position. It makes everything easier in life. You have a much easier time to make enough money to be successful. But to do that, you got to make a lot of sacrifices and endure some pain. And you only do that if you have that clear goal ahead of you.
And Marcus, look, this isn't against money. Look, money is a tool that can be used to do all kinds of good, and it also can be used to create a lot of evil. But the reality is that money, the way Brian is suggesting, is to give you freedom. And I want all my listeners to understand that money can be very freeing. You don't want it to bind you up. You want it to buy you more time to do the things you want, the leisure time you want in your life, those kind of things. And Brian, I'm going to kind of wrap this interview up because the listeners have been listening. Now, here's the two things. One, there's a link in here, look below, where you can buy the book. Go get the book. This one right here, the 3rd edition. Okay. And then there'll be a link below for Goalscape for a 14-day free trial. And I want to mention that it now has an AI tool in it, just now released. So the AI will actually help you set your goals. So if you just have an idea, type it in, and it's got a cute little name. What's the name that we gave it, Marcus?
Oh, we call it Goldberg A. Einstein.
Goldberg A. Einstein is in there. So when you click on it, you'll be able to do that. And I'll tell you, it's as amazing or more amazing than ChatGPT for all the listeners. So, Brian, this is something that always pops up. And I want to kind of wrap it up with this. And that is people out there, including us during our thing, and even now, they have fears. They have to overcome these fears, right? Um, and we've always said, well, is there a fear of success or a fear of failure, right? It's like, are you really afraid subconsciously of being successful? Because in our childhood, something happened and it got stuck up here. Um, like the fear of failure or the fear of rejection. What would you tell somebody out there now who wants to set goals that might be dealing with some personal fears about how to really overcome it? If there's one mentor that can help it, it would be you, because you've helped so many people overcome fears to actually achieve their goals.
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as fear of success. Nobody's afraid of being better off rather than worse off. What there is fear of failure and rejection. But the way that you overcome a fear is you do the thing you fear until the death of fear is certain. Is you have to remember when you started off in sales, it was really scary to call on.
Oh, yeah.
It was. And or what you did is you did it over and over again because you had to eat, which is a real good motivator. And eventually the fear went away. You realized there was really nothing to fear. So you do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. And the keys to success, go right back to Napoleon Hill, is do something that you love to do and do it well. Pick something that you enjoy doing. And you and I and Marcus, we love our work. I mean, we cannot imagine not doing what we're doing. Funny. We read about it, we study it, and we associate with other people who do it. And we just feel happy all the time. And really, that's the key. Find something to love to do, put your whole heart into becoming really good at it, because it'll always be something that helps other people, that improves their lives, that makes you feel good yourself. So that's what I would end this conversation.
I think it's a great thing what you just said. And I would just add to that, that having someone by your side, a coach, a mentor, somebody really can help you overcome that. And don't be afraid to ask for help. I think many people out there get to a point where they're like, oh, I'm going to be embarrassed if I have to ask for help or do this or do that. And I've learned a lot of lessons that way. The minute I opened up and I became vulnerable and asked for help was the minute that I actually was able to overcome many of those fears and doubts. And as Marcus said, limiting beliefs, because someone helped me overcome those limiting beliefs. Now, Marcus, do you have anything to add to the fear part?
Oh, well, one of the biggest fears people have is the fear of public speaking, you know? And that's a good example of how kind people are. You know, if it happens that someone blacks out in front of a crowd, what the crowd usually does, it starts clapping at some point, you know, because they relate and they understand. It's an awful thing to happen. Everybody dreads it, but it can happen, and happen to the best, you know, and then you feel the kindness of the people. And that's the pattern. You know, there's much more help out there, but you can only get the help if you set yourself a goal, get direction, and then you can tell someone, I'm looking for the right way. Can you help me find it? And there are the goals again. You can't get help if you don't know where you're going.
Well, again, we've had a great conversation and podcast today with both of you gentlemen about Goals, the book, and Goalscape, the software. And again, these are, you can buy them separately, you can buy them together, but whatever you do, get this book first and read it, and then go to the website goalscape.com, get your free version of the software, and you'll just see how the combination of these two is really extremely powerful, extremely powerful. Thank you both for being on. Namaste to each of you. Thank you for spending time with me and its
you.
personal growth and our listeners. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast on Inside Personal Growth. We appreciate your support. And for more information about new podcasts, please go to InsidePersonalGrowth.com or any of your favorite channels to listen to our podcast. Thanks again, and have a wonderful day.